I met David Letterman in 1973 when I was in New York pitching TV shows for the William Morris Agency. Dave was a born comedian who for years had labored behind the scenes writing for crap like the Starland Vocal Band Show, but to me he'd always stood out. His humor was goofy but razor sharp. I tracked him as Johnny Carson's recurrent guest on The Tonight Show, and then on Late Night with David Letterman, which debuted in 1982 in the time slot after Johnny's on NBC. Dave excelled at the toughest job in show business, making people laugh 5 nights a week. No one could replace Johnny, the coolest, most charming host ever, but it was an open secret that Johnny wanted Dave to succeed him. Yet NBC made Jay Leno Johnny's permanent guest host and seemed to be leaning Leno's way. In February 1991, during Johnny's 29th year at the helm, I was stunned to read a headline in the New York Post: NBC looking to dump Carson for Jay Leno. Clearly, Helen Kushnick, Leno's hyper-aggressive manager, was behind this ridiculous claim. She thought NBC owed Jay The Tonight Show. Now. The Post story made me take a closer look at Late Night. At CAA, we kept a dashboard of every project underway in film, TV, music, and books. A copy was placed in each agent's black binder, together with the latest box office data, TV ratings, bestseller lists, and other pertinent data that might give us an edge at our 8:30 a.m. staff meetings, which were themselves scheduled to give us an edge. We started 60 to 90 minutes ahead of our competitors. Our rule at staff meetings was no idea is too stupid. I consulted the dashboard several times a day, looking for opportunities for clients, potential film packages, or new business. The crazier sounding, the better. The late-night math seemed simple. There were 2 candidates to replace Carson, and Helen Kushnick had one. Letterman was the other. Dave had a top attorney in Jake Bloom, an able manager in Jack Rollins, and a nightclub booker who had nothing to do. Unlike Jay, who relentlessly played club dates on weekends, Dave never did stand-up. He shunned personal appearances. He didn't go out much, period, and he didn't have an agent. Dave was a star at 12:30, but I thought he could be a much bigger one. Because it's human nature to resist being sold, I avoided cold-calling prospective clients. Better for them to come to me. Better to be wooed than to pitch. I dispatched Jay Maloney on a recon mission to Peter LaSalle, Late Night's executive producer. Jay listened carefully to Peter's woes, then offered his opinion. Dave is naked against all the forces lined up behind Jay. He needs help. Afterward, Jay told me, Dave is floundering. Dave's problem was that he was a regular guy from Indianapolis who didn't lobby or whine or throw his weight around. He thought that he'd inherit the biggest seat in Late Night on merit. He was clearly a more original talent than Jay, and therefore a more natural heir to Johnny, but that's not how the business works. Behind that biting sense of humor, Dave was an innocent. Warren Littlefield, the president of NBC Entertainment, favored Leno, but the man on the spot was Bob Wright, the canny finance executive who'd become NBC's CEO after General Electric bought the network in 1986. We sold NBC 10 pilots a year, and I held Bob in high regard. Optimistically, Bob hoped to retain both Leno and Letterman, one on Tonight and the other in the bullpen. He thought Dave would do as he was told, because where else could he go? Ted Koppel was entrenched on ABC's Nightline, and CBS seemed whipped after a string of failed challenges to Carson. Its latest pretender, Pat Sajak, had been canceled after just 15 months. In May, 3 months after the Post story, Johnny announced that he'd retire in a year. At 65, he wanted to go out on top. After waiting a respectful 2 weeks, NBC announced that Jay Leno would take Johnny's chair. Jay's mainstream appeal made him the safer bet for the $100 million franchise. Corporate thinking, cautious, but understandable. I was stunned, though, to hear that the network had kept Dave in the dark until 2 days before the announcement, particularly as Leno's latest contract had secretly locked him in as Carson's replacement. No one at NBC was looking out for Letterman, who brought the network $55 million a year. Then, as now, the networks made most of their profits from late night and daytime programming. Indeed, the network's bean counters had been hassling Dave on expenses, going so far as to reject his invoice for a car phone. Even when Dave told Warren Littlefield to his face he'd have to quit if he didn't get Tonight, Littlefield made no real effort to assuage him.